Rated M for mature.
I'm LoCascio, and welcome to the last episode before the season finale of Walking Dead, No Time Left. Today we'll be talking to Nick Herman and Gary Whitta about Episode 4, as well as a sneak preview of Episode 5, right here on Playing Dead. So guys, thank you for coming back to the show. So we know we've talked about this before because you've been on before, but tell me, what do you guys do on Episode 4? What were your jobs?
Sure, yeah. For 4, I was the director.
And I was the writer of Episode 4, and I'm also the story consultant across the whole series.
I need to start with this. I know it's kind of at the end, but Lee getting bit, which is your fault, I'm assuming. Is it?
What?
Can I blame you?
Lee gets bit?
Have you been planning this from the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning, it was very it was just a beat, and that was all we knew about it. It's like, Lee gets bit, Clem is missing. That's all we know about Episode 4, so we'll figure it out when we get there, you know what I mean?
Some people, are in complete denial. They're like, oh my God, maybe Lee's immune, maybe he's the chosen one, maybe they can cut the arm off or save him somehow, and other people are like, deal with it, accept it, Lee's gone, it's over. There's a lot of disagreement among players about what the bite actually means.
So, Gary, as writer of this episode, what specifically did you want people to take away from this?
Obviously, a big part of what Episode 4 is meant to be is teeing up the finale, and I feel like we did that successfully. We ended on a great cliffhanger moment. People freak out when the episode ends. In terms of the big picture, I kind of felt like if you look at the overall kind of energy of the season, we were coming off a very, very emotionally dark episode in Episode 3. And so 4, I think, is probably kind of structured most like, I think it's one of the most action-heavy episode. We have a lot of zombie shooting. We have a lot of fun action stuff. We have characters like Molly who are intended to kind of lighten the tone and let players kind of just enjoy themselves a little bit more before we, of course, pulled the rug from them.
So when Lee gets bit and he discusses it with the group and tells her, that's a big moment because everything Lee did to everyone else is sort of all building up to like how they view Lee now.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite moments in the season just because it isn't your choice. You're not making choices anymore. You've made choices up until that point, and now
other characters are making choices.
Now they're making decisions. Now they're, you can imagine someone else at home playing Krista, and you're like, she's making decisions on whether or not to come with you. Like that's just what that moment feels like, and I just love how that works. You were just saying like you chose to go alone, right?
Yeah, it just felt like the right Lee thing to do for me. I was just like, no, there's no point in burdening them.
Mm-hmm.
We put a tremendous amount of work into that scene because there are 8 different outcomes in terms of the different group variations that can come. Lee can go alone or with any combination of the players that are left in the game at that point. And beyond just the 8 outcomes, there's multiple different ways for those 8 outcomes to happen. If you could see like behind the wiring of how that scene, it would drive you crazy, as it did us when we were trying to make it work. Like when Kenny decides whether or not he's going to go with you, that's the result of every decision that you've made. I said earlier, Nate Silver would freak out looking at the mathematics of Kenny and how his mind works in terms of all the decisions that are being tracked, because it's so complicated. And Krista and Omid have their own mathematics that are going on. All your chickens come home to roost. Every choice that you've made in the game up to that point makes a difference now.
I really enjoyed Molly, and apparently a lot of fans do too. Where did she come from?
She was definitely intended to be like a little bit of Glenn, a little like very capable, can move around the city, independent, survivor, a little bit Michonne, a badass, a little bit Daryl, a badass.
We were also looking for like just a strong female character because we have, not to say our female characters aren't strong, but they've got their issues.
Lily and Carly and Clem are all very strong in their own way, but we wanted just like a fuck you character. When Molly says she's leaving, you can choose to say, you should come with us, or you can just say, yeah, you should just go, or whatever. I haven't seen anyone pick anything other than you should come with us, because everybody wants her to stay. Yeah. You'll notice that tonally, the episode starts very dark, and then when she shows up, things start to appear more hopeful. And maybe
you feel a little more safe.
We discover a boat. Maybe we can go to Crawford and get these supplies. And then as soon as she leaves, everything turns to shit again. And so she is kind of this little ray of light in a way. And for that reason, because, the tonal palette of Walking Dead is very dark overall, we have to be careful that we use characters like Molly very sparingly.
Well, she's certainly not a light character. Her backstory is quite dark.
Pretty dark. The story can play out. You either never discover why she has this backstory, or you discover this third videotape that has this kind of dark secret, and she kind of finally spills her guts and becomes. There's a nice little vulnerable moment for Molly where she explains why she was in Crawford and why she left, and it's It's an interesting part of telling an interactive story, because I heard from some people that played the game, like, I thought Molly was an interesting character, but I wish I'd have known more about her backstory. You could have if you'd have found that tape. Some people.
That's how I feel. I was like, there's more to this.
I don't like to tell people how to play the game. I like, but when they walk past that locker that has Molly's tape in it, I'm like, no, go back.
Is that the one with the handprint on it?
Yes. The only other choice in the game where I'll nudge people one way or the other is bringing Clem to Crawford or leaving her back, because if you take her. Moment. That, to me, gives you the most satisfying moment in the game. People cheer when they realize Clem just saved Molly and shot a walker. They're like, yeah.
That was a crazy decision for me. I got to keep Clementine with me. She's my responsibility. She's the sole purpose I'm doing everything I'm doing.
The numbers don't always tell you the whole story. People really agonize over that decision.
Well, there is that moment where you think, like, well, maybe, I don't know this town. She might get killed as soon as I walk in. Like, you don't know anything about this
Even
place.
though we give you a really long fuse to make the decision, people still pause the game because they want more time. Most people came down on the side of both things are dangerous. Maybe taking it to Crawford is more dangerous, but at the end of the day, she's always safer by my side.
Right.
I'm always more comfortable knowing she's in my sight.
Crawford is this really ominous place that they keep referring to and that they go to. Where did that come from? What was Crawford about? Like, that was such a crazy, awesome place with the zombie barrier and the big pile.
Yeah,
the
the zombie
pikes.
barricade was one of my suggestions.
It's amazing.
You always want to do some things that are just horrible, and the idea of like living or undead kind of zombie scarecrows kind of writhing around just felt like it was a good gross out thing.
Yeah, I think it's a good introduction to Crawford.
The theme of The Walking Dead is that what happens to humanity when civilization falls? I think people either come together and the best version of humanity emerges, or the worst version.
Right.
And you see examples of both. And Crawford obviously is an example of the worst.
Yeah.
They've survived, but the cost at which they had survived up until that point was they had basically given up all their humanity.
Right.
Some people picked up on this, that when you're faced with that choice of whether or not to save Ben or leave him behind because he's a drag on the group, is Crawford in a nutshell.
Right.
As you're leaving Crawford, you have the choice to either become like them or reject their philosophy of your survival of the fittest.
So let's talk about one of my favorite things is player choices. First one is Kenny in the attic with the little boy. So 75% of people chose to help Kenny out and kill the kid.
Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily about the moral ambiguity of whether one thing's right or wrong. It's how people view that choice. I think most people chose to kill the boy because they felt like after everything that Kenny went through with Duck, that they weren't going to put him through that again of having to like put a bullet in a kid's head or whatever.
Right.
Some people, however, 25% of people saw that choice a different way and felt that after everything he went through and given that he was so emotionally broken, that this could actually be cathartic for him.
So when Lee goes down into the sewer, we go to the shelter and we meet Vernon for the first time and he pulls a gun on him. 66% of players chose to reason with him, whereas the flip side was to threaten him.
It's interesting. Most players want to play as a good character. They don't want to be the threatening guy or the bad guy. And a part of the reason for that is that they always worry about the impact of Clem. After we killed that St. John brother in episode 2 and Clem saw it, people are terrified now that anything bad they might do, Clem's like, oh my God, what have you done? Why did you have to see that?
Constantly.
Right.
Like Lee goes to like a piss in the woods and Clem's like, what are you doing? Oh my God.
Jesus,
Like,
Clem!
are you watching everything? Can I not do anything for myself?
That could be a whole meme. You guys could make that into a whole big thing.
Yeah,
Everything Lee does.
We'll do a YouTube compilation. But what's interesting is when he goes in the sewers, it's the very first time since the very beginning of the game in episode 1 that he's totally separated from Clementine and everyone else. He's completely alone.
It'd be funny. That's just like, Lee!
Really? Again?
Oh my God.
So you do have some license to be a bit more of a badass character and take a tougher line. And in fact, if you do choose to threaten Vernon, it has one of the most, I think, fun. Like he turns into Sam Jackson in that scene.
Totally.
He's like a real badass.
Yeah.
I love when he whips that out. All of a sudden, it's just like, Lee, I didn't know. Yeah. And it's funny because it's you choosing it too, and you're just like, tell him to say "fuck you," and you hit that, and he'll say something. You're like, oh, I'm shocked. So the final stat I have here is the big one. When Lee got bit, 80% of people chose to reveal it, which is crazy to me. I mean, that's a huge stat.
You said earlier you hit it, right?
Yeah, I hit it. I was like, oh no, I'll deal with it. This is my own thing. I don't want to,
that surprised us too. I mean, in playtest, that seemed to go around 50-50.
In playtesting, it was right down the middle, and I expected ultimately, again, because of the players wanted to do the virtuous thing, which is, I guess, to be honest and reveal it.
Right.
I expected most people, not to the degree that they did. Yeah. And again, in talking to players and listening to playthroughs, what most people say is it's going to come out eventually. It's better to be honest about it now. It's the only choice in the game where we give players a second chance to rethink their decision.
Yeah.
In real life, if you wanted to say, oh, I hid it from you earlier, here it is, I'm sorry, like, that you should be able to do that. And we didn't want to restrict people and have them go, if this was real life, I could just do it. Why isn't the game allowing me to do it?
People, one of the reasons to hide the bite might be that you're worried that the group will turn you away.
Right.
In reality, it's the opposite. And actually, it says something about the good human nature of the players in our group, that if you reveal the bite, it actually locks players into helping you.
Yeah, Krista and Omid, if you show them the bite, they're like, well, you might not make it to save Clem. Like, we're coming with you. You know what I mean? We got to help you.
Some people are very glad that they got the full group to come with them. But the players that are alone don't feel like they failed. They feel like that's the courageous choice that they've made. They made a choice to go on their own.
Right.
It's like, this is on me. This is my job to protect Clementine. I can't ask you to put yourselves in danger, and they want to be kind of the lone wolf.
Well, and like we said earlier, like their experience through episode 5 is going to be dramatically different, and like they're gonna get what they wanted, right? They want to be alone, they want to deal with everything alone, and they will.
But people aren't just rewinding, because if you do that, constantly kind of restoring your save, choices don't mean anything anymore.
No. Now it's time for some questions from players. This first question's from Diavel, who has a question for you, Gary.
Okay.
What were your main inspirations when writing this episode?
This is going to sound like a lame thing to say, but honestly, the previous 3 episodes, Telltale had set such a great tone with these characters, and I really just wanted. People around here will tell I was terrified about episode 4, because I was the only writer from outside of Telltale to be invited to come in and contribute a piece of this. And episodes 1, 2, and 3 came out, and we're just kicking ass, high reviews, glowing praise. And I didn't want to be the guy that comes in and like suddenly. I wasn't really taking inspiration from anywhere, but other than the Robert's Universe and some of the other great zombie stories that I grew up on. There's a couple of little nods, little Easter eggs to some of the Romero zombie movies are in there that I kind of slipped in. But for the most part, just wanting to stay tonally consistent with what Telltale had established at that point, and on a quality level, just feel like people felt this episode could stand alongside the rest.
Jacqueline asks, in all caps, "Why did you kill Chuck? I really liked him. He was one of the only smart people in the group!" Exclamation. "But I'm happy you gave us the option to kill Ben."
We made the decision to kind of lose him off screen, which we hadn't done with a major character before, and it felt like a different way to do that.
Not everyone gets a heroic movie star death. Some people just die, and
but in a sewer.
It's sadder.
In a way, he died saving Clem, which is he did have a heroic moment. And don't like anyone too much in this game, because we will take them away from you.
No. So Trevor Ninja 10's question is: did you ever consider a scene where Clem refers to Lee as Dad, or reject her parents for Lee? That's wow.
There's a moment in the morgue when Verna asks Lee, "Is she your daughter?" And you can say no, which you can read that as either an overt lie to try and get Verna's sympathy. Some people say yes because that's honestly how they see the truth of it now. They do think that it might as well be his daughter. The parents aren't coming back in their mind. They're never going to see the parents again. And that's Lee's journey from originally feeling like this girl is someone that he's kind of saddled with, to really, having this emotional bond.
Before we wrap up today, we can't leave without discussing episode 5. Can you guys give us any hints or anything without spoiling anything?
I saw the final quarter of the episode, and still by the end, I just sat in my office for probably an hour and a half and didn't do any work. Just sat there and went, I don't know if I can do this.
But people who know The Walking Dead, I'm sure, are bracing themselves to what might be coming. And I'm not saying it's one thing or the other, but it is by far the most emotionally potent episode. It's not even close.
No. God.
I mean, there's been quite a few tears, right? Even around the office, people.
Oh man.
When you block the time out to play it, give yourself time afterwards. I'm not even kidding.
I believe you. And that's why I'm fearful. But thank you guys so much for being here today and talking to us. That's it. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Remember to email your questions to playingdead@telltalegames.com or call 707-701-DEAD and leave a message. Be sure to sign up for the official website or follow us on Facebook or Twitter to be the first one to find out when the next episode of Playing Dead goes live. Saying this before, I think the game should end with a mini game where you're Lee and Clementine as zombies eating people over the credits.
Well, there's always season 2. Right?
Yeah.
There you go. But like Pac-Man style.